Hello and welcome to the English YouTuber. So in today's video, we are going to go into the line by line explanation of the short story, The Pedestrian, which is written by Ray Bradbury. Please stay until the end and watch the video because we are going to look at the literary devices that are used in the story, some of the important questions, and also I'll be teaching you certain vocabulary. So let's begin. So the protagonist in the story is Mr. Leonard Mead. So the story is talking about a dystopian society. Dystopian means an imagined society where there is great suffering or injustice to the people. So this is a story about a dystopian society in AD 2053. So let's start. To enter out into that silence that was the city at 8 o'clock of a misty evening in November. So through imagery, the author is setting the scene of how it is. So there was total silence in the evening at 8 o'clock. It is a misty evening in the month of November. And to put your feet up that buckling concrete wall, to step over grassy seams and make your way, hands in pocket, through the silences, that was what Mr. Leonard Mead most dearly loved to do. So what did Mr. Leonard Mead most dearly love to do? To walk in the silence, in the misty evenings of November, through the concrete walks and grassy scenes, and to walk through the silence by putting his hands in his pocket is what Mr. Leonard Mead enjoyed to do. He would stand upon the corner of an intersection and peer down long moonlit avenues of sidewalks in four directions, deciding which way to go. So here it shows that he did not follow a routine direction or a path to walk, but he would decide at that minute. But it really made no difference. He was alone in this world of AD 2053, or as good as alone. And with a final decision made, a path selected, he would stride off. Okay, so they're saying Mr. Leonard Mead is alone because there is no one on the streets. They are not calling him lonely. They're just saying that he is alone in this world because there isn't anyone on the streets post 8 p.m. He would stride off, sending patterns of frosty air before him like the smoke of a cigar. So here they have used a simile. This says the puff of air that he would send out from his mouth, because it was November, it was like the smoke of a cigar. Sometimes he would walk for hours and miles and return only at midnight to his house. So this shows how much he enjoyed walking on the streets. And on his way, he would see the cottages and homes with their dark windows. And it was not unequal. So they have used two negatives to walking through a graveyard. So he says walking through the streets felt like he was walking through a graveyard where only the faintest glimmer of fireflies light appeared in flickers behind the windows. So he says they used to draw the curtains over the windows, so it used to give him only a glimmer of some light which looked like fireflies, and he felt like he was walking through a graveyard because everything felt so lifeless. Suddenly, grey phantoms seemed to manifest upon inner room walls where a curtain was still undrawn against the night. So sometimes he would see shadows of people which looked like grey phantoms or ghosts because the curtains were undrawn but it was still dark, so they looked like ghosts against the night. Or there were whisperings and murmurs where a window in a tomb-like building was still open. So if a window would still be open, he would hear whisperings and murmurs of people in a tomb-like building. So he's saying people are trapped in their houses, which seems like graves, and the people are as good as dead. Mr. Leonard Mead would pause, cock his head, listen, look, and march on. So he was quite observant. His feet making no noise on the lumpy walk. So he would walk silently. For long ago he had wisely changed to sneakers while strolling at night. For long ago he changed into sneakers while walking at night because the dogs in intermittent squads would parallel his journey with barkings if he wore hard heels. So the clacking of his heels against the floor would actually annoy the dogs and they would start barking. And the lights might click on and faces appear and an entire street be startled by the passing of a lone figure, himself in the early November evening. So all the people would get startled by the noise and and they would be shocked to see that a man is walking about in the streets at night. So therefore, he changed into sneakers so that his walking would not make any noise and disturb the dogs. On this particular evening, he began his journey in a westerly direction towards the hidden sea. So he went in the western direction. There was a good crystal frost in the air. It cut the nose and made the lungs blaze like a Christmas tree inside. So again, the author has used simile here. So he felt like a Christmas tree inside because his lungs were ablaze. It was cold. You could feel the cold light going on and off, all the branches filled with invisible snow. Because inside the lungs also it looks like a tree. He listened to the faint push of his soft shoes through autumn leaves with satisfaction and whistled a cold, quiet whistle between his teeth, occasionally picking up a leaf as he passed, examining its skeletal pattern in the infrequent lamp lights as he went on, smelling his rusty smells. So as he is walking, he is enjoying nature and enjoying his walk in the midst of nature. So he's saying the world is devoid of life and emotion, and it's only him who is appreciating nature and enjoying life. So the people are devoid of life or emotion as they are attracted to their television. Hello in there, he whispered to every house and every side as he moved. What's up tonight on Channel 4, Channel 7, Channel 9? Where are the cowboys rushing? And do I see the United States cavalry over the next hill to the rescue? So he isn't just walking on his own, he's talking to every house. And he's asking people what they are watching on their television shows. The street was silent, long, and empty, and with only his shadow moving, like the shadow of a hawk in mid-country. Okay, so again, a simile is used here. So they're saying he's the only one walking on the street, and his shadow looks like the shadow of the bird hawk, which is in mid-country. If he closed his eyes and stood very still, frozen, he could imagine himself upon the center of a plain, a wintry, windless Arizona desert with no house in 1,000 miles and only dry river beds, the streets for company, showing how lonely it is. He says it is so lonely and the streets are so deserted that it feels like he's walking in a desert with no houses around. What is it now? He asked the houses, noticing his wristwatch. 8:30 p.m. Time for a dozen assorted murders, a quiz, a review, a comedian falling off the stage. So a review means like a theatrical dance performance, maybe with songs and dance and enjoyment. So he's trying to predict, oh, it's 8:30 p.m. So what are all of you watching? Was that a murmur of laughter from within a moon-white house? So he's saying, oh, did I hear laughter from that house? He hesitated, but went on when nothing more happened. Okay, so there was just a murmur and then he heard no sound. He stumbled over a particularly uneven section of sidewalk. The cement was vanishing under flowers and grass. So because people weren't walking enough on the sidewalks, flowers and grasses had started growing. In 10 years of walking by night or day, so he has been walking for 10 years, a decade, for thousands of miles. He had never met another person walking, not once all the time. So he is saying that his walks were solitary and he did not meet another person ever during these walks, or that he wasn't confronted by anyone. He came to a clover leaf intersection which stood silent where two main highways crossed the town. So the author, if you see, environment is totally serene or tranquil. During the day, it was a thunderous surge of cars. The gas stations open, a great insect rustling, and a ceaseless jockeying for position. Okay, so here he's showing the stark contrast between how the situation is during the day and then during the night. And he's comparing the cars to a great insect rustling, and they are trying to find position for themselves just like a scarab beetle. So there is a beetle called the scarab beetle. So he is comparing the vehicles to these beetles. A faint incense puttering from their exhaust skimmed homeward to the far directions. So he's saying in the morning there is a lot of chaos on the streets and there is a lot of motion around. But now these highways were also too quiet, like the streams in a dry season. So during dry season, the stream, there is no water at all, it is empty. All stone and bed and moon radiance. So it is just silent and there is no motion at all. He turned back on a side street, circling around towards his home. He was within a block of his destination, so he was nearly back home, when the lone car turned a corner quite suddenly. So he was taken aback when there was a lone car which turned quite suddenly and flashed a fierce white cone of light upon him. So the headlights, they were flashed upon him. He stood entranced, not unlike a night moth. So there were not unlike his two negatives, which makes a positive like. So he stood entranced. So he's filled with wonder, he's shocked. So he stood like a night moth, stunned by the illumination. And then he was drawn towards the light, like how moths are then drawn towards the light. A metallic voice called to him, "Stand still, stay where you are, don't move." So he was asked to stay put. He halted. "Put up your hands." He said, "But your hands up or we'll shoot." So this shows someone is really strict and devoid of emotions. The police, of course. But what a rare, incredible thing. So why did he call the police a rare, incredible thing? Because in a city of 3 million people, there was only one police car left. Wasn't that correct? Even since a year ago, that is 2052, the election year, the force had been cut down from 3 cars to 1. During elections, usually there is more security, but now even during that time the cars were reduced to 1. Crime was ebbing, so crime was receding, plunging, reducing, declining. There was no need now for the police. save for this one lone car wandering and wandering the empty streets. So there was no crimes that were happening, and therefore there was only one police car that used to wander the empty streets. Your name, said the police car in a metallic whisper. He couldn't see the men in it for the bright light in his eyes. So because of that, he could not see who was seated inside. Leonard Mead, he said. Speak up, Leonard Mead. So then the next question was, do you do business or what profession do you have? So he said, I guess you would call me a writer. So he's a writer. So the police car said, that's not a profession, as if talking to itself. The light held him fixed like a museum species, needle thrust through chest. So he said, the headlight of the car transfixed him so that he couldn't even move and he was fixated, just like how a museum species is held at its place through needles that are thrust upon them. You might say that, said Mr. Mead. So you can say that writer isn't a profession. He hadn't written in years. Magazines and books didn't sell anymore. So magazines and books had become obsolete. Everything went on in the tomb-like houses at night now, he thought, continuing his fancy. So here it is talking about the diminishing value on intellectual and creative pursuits. So it shows how people are so addicted or totally consumed by technology that such creative pursuits are no longer appreciated by the people. The tombs, ill lit by television lights, where the people sat like the dead. The grey or multicolored lights touching their faces but never really touching them. So he's saying the society has become more mechanical and people are sitting like the dead, devoid of any emotions or real social communication or social interaction. And these lights are touching their faces but not really touching them. It means that there is nothing that is impacting them positively. And it has deadened the users from inside. No profession, said the phonograph voice hissing. What are you doing out? Walking, said Leonard. Walking? Just walking, he said simply, but his face felt cold. Walking? Just walking? Walking? So if you see here, walking is a very ordinary or a regular activity. But even such activities have now become strange for the people to perceive. And seems like it is illegal now because nobody does it. Yes, sir. Walking where? For what? So if you're walking, what is the reason? He says walking for air, walking to see your address. 11 South St. James Street. So he says, where does he live? His address. And there is air in your house. So do you have air in your house? You have an air conditioner, Mr. Mead? Yes. He's saying if you have air in your house and if you have air conditioner, what is the use of you to go out? And you have a viewing screen in your house to see with. So he's asking, do you have a television? No. No? There was a crackling quiet. So if you see here, there is an oxymoron. What is oxymoron? Exactly opposite words that are put right next to each other. So crackling and then it is saying quiet. So there was a crackling quiet that in itself was an accusation. So his accusation. You don't have a television? Why don't you have a television? Are you married, Mr. Mead? No. Not married, said the police voice behind the fiery beam. The moon was high and clear among the stars and the houses were grey and silent. Nobody wanted me, said Leonard Mead with a smile. Don't speak unless you are spoken to. So Leonard Mead waited in the cold night. Just walking, Mr. Mead? So they're still unable to fathom why exactly he was on the street at night. Yes. But you haven't explained for what purpose. So they still don't understand. What is the reason for you to move out at such an odd time at night? I explained for air and to see and just to walk. Have you done this often? Every night for years. The police car sat in the center of the street with its radio throat faintly humming. Well, Mr. Mead, it said. Is that all? He asked politely. Yes, said the voice. Here, there was a sigh, a pop. The back door of the police car sprang wide. Get in. Wait a minute, I haven't done anything wrong. So he's saying, why are you arresting me? I was just walking on the streets. And that isn't wrong. Get in. So he said, I protest, Mr. Mead. So he's asked against his will to get in. He walked like a man suddenly drunk. As he passed the front window of the car, he looked in. And as he expected, there was no one in the front seat, no one in the car at all. So the car was ridden by mechanical sources and there were no people inside. Get in. He put his hand to the door and peered into the back seat, which was a little cell, a little black jail with bars. It smelled of riveted steel. It smelled of harsh antiseptic. It smelled too clean and hard and metallic. There was nothing soft there. So he was saying that everything inside the car felt harsh and artificial. Now, if you had a wife to give you an alibi, said the iron voice, but where are you taking me? He's asking. The car hesitated. So here there is anthropomorphism, where a non-living thing is given human feelings. The car hesitated, or rather gave a faint whirring click, as if information somewhere was dropping card by punch-slotted card under electric eyes, to the Psychiatric Center for Research on Regressive Tendencies. Because he seemed decisive, he seemed empowered, who dared to do something that no one else would do that to for years. And because he stood out in the society as someone different, he was taken to the psychiatric center because he showed regressive tendencies. He got in, the door shut with a soft thud. The police car rolled through the night avenues, flashing its dim light ahead, and the car moved. They passed one house on one street a moment later. One house in an entire city of houses that were dark, but this one particular house had all its electric lights brightly lit. Every window a loud yellow illumination, square and warm in the cool darkness. So it shows that Mr. Leonard Mead was different from the entire society. That is how they showed that all the houses were grey and dark, but it was only him which was bright and which was warm. So it shows that he was different from the society and he was more alive and awake than all the people who seemed more mechanical and seemed like dead people. That's my house, said Leonard Mead. No one answered him. The car moved down the empty riverbed streets and off away, leaving the empty streets with the empty sidewalks and no sound, no motion, all the rest of the night, chill November night. So this shows how technology can make a society isolated, disengaged, and people will prefer to stay indoors and enjoy artificial interaction rather than real human connection. I'm so glad that you watched this video until the end. I hope you got to learn a lot more than what you knew. I'm praying for each one of you. All the very best and God bless you.